Why is this a big deal for us as Christians?
I was being gossiped about. One girl had the power to turn 3 other friends against me that then none of them were my friend. And it's interesting. I feel like I'm giving you guys so many personal stories. You guys can't judge me after we record this episode.
You can clarify, but you can't undo it now.
Yeah.
The sword has gone in, and you can take the sword out, but the wound is there. That will wreck a family. It'll wreck relationships, and it will destroy a church. Don't play that game here. Go ruin someone else's church, and don't tell us which church you're going to, because we will call them and tell them that you're coming to ruin their church.
Today on the Live Change podcast, we're talking about gossip. Now, we've all know people that have gossiped. We ourselves have gossiped, and chances are we've all been hurt by someone that gossiped. So today we're going to talk about how do we as Christians rise above that, and even though society just is totally accepting of gossip, what does God want us to do with it? And that's what we're talking about today on the Live Change podcast. And I'm joined by Jason and Joanna. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, good.
I've never gossiped, but I know someone who has, and I want to tell you about them. Do you get it? See, that's funny.
Gossip is something that it is tasty.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that, like we all are guilty of it. There's nobody, and I love that it's always viewed as like a female thing. Like, oh,
you love that.
Well, I don't love it. It's just, it's a
anytime we get left off the hook, yes.
Yeah. But I find it ironic that it is like, well, ladies like to gossip.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, men like to gossip too. I personally don't believe that gossip has to be true or untrue. I think it's just when you are talking about someone else's life for the purpose of other than blessing them, when you're talking about someone else's life for the enjoyment or entertainment of yourself or others, I think you're in gossip territory. I think you just crossed over the border to gossip land. Because like a lot of times they're like, it's not gossip, it's true. Don't make it not gossip.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Or that it's yours to share. Sometimes I think it's like when you're sharing something
that's a
that's
good
not
filter.
yours to share.
that's a really good point. That's a really, really good point. So what are some examples of where gossip takes hold? Because I think some people listening are like, I don't gossip. No, I'm never guilty of gossiping. I hate gossip. But most people would say they hate gossips.
Yeah.
But we're all probably guilty of it. So what are some examples of where you've seen gossip in your own lives?
Well, so I think it shows up in sneaky ways where you're like, oh, how can I pray for you? And it's like, oh, are you really going to pray for them? Or are you just trying to find out what's going on? Like,
What's the dirt?
yeah.
Well, how about this? When I go to people, which I do this all the time, I go, can I tell you how to pray for Joanna?
Oh, there you go.
Because I know what she's, I mean, I'm joking, but obviously, but there's a sense of like, I'm going to share with someone how to pray about someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But really all I'm doing is letting them in on something that I really didn't have any business letting them in on.
Yeah.
The I think I see it. I see it in office places. Gossip is often really, really whenever there's people in close proximities that, and everyone's living their life as best they can. And that's just a place where you pick up, opportunities to gossip. So like, where is that person? I heard this and this, or I heard this and this about this person for their promotion.
If you're starting a sentence with "I heard," you're probably
Yeah.
venturing into the land of gossip.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know why we find it so satiating. So like a good couple, before we get into that, what are some other examples here? So like, I think there's office gossip. I think in school, like our kids gossip about each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's bananas. It's probably one of the first sins that kids experience because like, I think most children are pretty doggone innocent.
Yeah.
But I have caught my own children when they were young being like, so-and-so is a bad kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you know that?
Well, and it's interesting because I don't know what it's like for you guys, but I can also remember times even in that when I was that age that happened to me. And so it's funny, like even talking to Finn
what
about
happened to
that I was being gossiped about.
Okay.
And so
Like you knew people were talking about you.
Yeah. So even recently we have been talking about friendships with Finn. And so actually I shared with him because I moved to a new school in 4th grade and he just asked me like, what was that like? And so I shared with him, hey, I actually got just connected with like a really small group of friends quickly. And there was one girl in the group that just didn't want me to be their friend. And so then she started telling the other girls in the group just what she thought about me or whatever. And so then he asked me like what happened. And it was like, well, actually then Finn, like I wasn't friends with any of them because one girl had said whatever to like make these other three not friends with me. And so it is interesting because to your point, I think it shows up so early. And what a weird thing to, it almost seems like that's like it just innately in you, whether it's the curiosity or the self-preservation.
Yeah.
That it just, I think starts so early.
Because you learn real early. You don't have power when you're a kid. You don't have financial power, physical power, but you have relational. You can do the relational stuff. Well, how do you do that? You create divisions. You tear down character. You set yourself up. Whatever. And so to me, it's like we learn that from a really early age, how to politic and how to make ourselves look better and that person look worse. It's how we position in some ways.
I remember telling a story about my sister had learned something about a guy that she went to school with in high school. I remember being in middle school talking about my sister's friend's brother, whatever, and what was going on with him. And it hurting a kid that I went to school with because it was his brother. Do you see all the the spokes of that? What just happened? Turned out it was true. Doesn't matter. It hurt him, and it was like really wounding to him. And it was an eye opener for me that it was just a story for me. I didn't even know the people involved, and yet it actually had deep ramifications and hurtful reactions.
And I think that's what's interesting. So what you just said, I would say I share something similar where some of it is how you're wired. So I love telling people a good story. And so I think even what you just said is just knowing you, it's like you're someone who also loves a good story.
I do.
And so you have to be careful. Is that a story you're supposed to be telling? Or you're telling your story. As soon as you start telling someone else's story, I think that's where you just have to be careful.
And it's so easy.
Yeah.
Another thing, this is another one that I think is so pervasive when it comes to gossip that it's a way that gossip masks itself, and it's called venting. I'm just venting. I just need to vent. And it's almost like the southern colloquialism of oh, bless your heart. And that everything after bless their heart is going to be mean. I think I just need to vent a second. Everything that comes after that will be gossip.
Yeah.
Jason, I just need to vent a second. Everything I'm about to tell you is probably not constructive, kind, or or it's things that it should be handled differently. But I quote unquote vent.
Well, then, I mean, if you take all this to its extreme, then how do we ever have a conversation about anybody that's not in the room?
That's a good question.
Which you need to have at times. You certainly need to have and should have probably. And, I mean, shouldn't you talk to your spouse, or shouldn't there be space there to talk about, dude, my kid's driving me crazy, my dog, my son's driving, whatever. Is that gossiping? Is that, what I mean? So
I think it depends. I think it depends on the purpose. So
what if you got a boss who's really toxic and you need to go vent? You need to get a perspective. You need to get.
I think
what you just said, you need to get perspective. But then what do you do with it? Or are you going and getting perspective from someone that can help you do something about it? Or I think one of the things that's easy to do is to vent or to find yourself in a circle with people who really can't help you do anything about it. Yeah. And then you've just told either a whole room or a whole circle or a whole other person something about a situation or someone else.
There's definitely and it when you're just trying to rally support versus you're trying to get perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good distinction.
Well, with everything, with our faith, like everything, it's about the heart of the
that's true.
Of the participants. And so if my heart is to go to my wife and say I'm having a problem with my boss at work, at that point, what is my purpose in that? I just I need to know how I'm going to interact with them tomorrow. How am I going to do this? How am I going to process this? What's the future of our family? That's probably a safe place to vent. If I'm going to a coworker to vent about my boss,
Mm-hmm.
at no point is that going to be half as constructive. And my purpose is probably to rally support and say that my boss, stinks.
Yeah. It's very subtle, and it does come down to your heart and your motives and self-awareness, like the ability to be self-aware enough to know, why am I doing this? But I think that takes a unique level of self-awareness. But one that, as followers of Jesus, we ought to be being discerning about, because words do carry. I mean, we've got so many proverbs written down here that we could talk about related to words. I think the one that probably is the umbrella over all of them is the proverb that says that words have the power of death and life. And that's kind of the umbrella statement about just the power of words, because they really can rob people. I mean, we've all been on the receiving end of that. Every single person listening right now can, if you were to tell me about the person who's had some of the most significant influence and impact in your life, my guess is somewhere in there they've spoken words of love to you, encouragement, affirmation, all that, right? Words brought life. And if you were to tell me, when we could all share stories about, you just shared one, Joanna, about when you were was it fourth grade?
Mm-hmm.
You still, that was how many years ago? And
totally.
Here you are, and you still, because words have the power to take life.
Yep.
And to drain you. So at the end of the day, this is why it's a spiritual issue. Like when it comes down to it, because how we use our words matters, because it can tear up or tear down or build up. And obviously, how do you love your neighbor while tearing them down? I mean, that's sort of doesn't reconcile. So it is a spiritual issue, how we use our words. And obviously, gossip is so tricky because you're doing it. I mean, you can cover it in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's, a lot of sins you can know really clearly when you've entered into sin territory. The problem with gossip is the boundaries are so thin. And I think what Jason originally pointed to is something that is in my heart is you can start in a good place and end in a very bad place. You can start with the most thoughtful of lunches with a friend about I'm in a bad place, and properly venting and seeking, and then before you know it, you land somewhere. So there has to be some spiritual yieldedness to be able to know. But why does that matter? Why is this a big deal for us as Christians? Why should everyone keep listening about this topic of gossip? Or is it just not as big of a deal as other things we could be tackling on this podcast?
Well, I don't know. I think it's funny because we've been talking a lot about the fruits of the Spirit in our house, and are we moving closer towards them or farther away from them? And so I think like that's relevant to the topic of gossip. And so nothing fruitful really comes from gossip. And so if we're called to have patience and
self-control,
yes, and joy, like gossip is in direct competition with growing fruit. And so anyway, I would just be real cautious of things that would make me that would not be fruitful conversations.
Yeah.
A lot of times the gossip thing, what it does is we're using our energy to talk about things, and we're just using our energy to vent, whatever, right? And it's not, this goes to your point, Joanna, it's not productive. I like that word. Like, it's not producing any fruit. And so it's because you don't, at the end of the day, want to do the work. Like, I should be talking to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Family is the most, to me, what do you call it? Trojan horse of this all. Because how easy is it to get in conversation with your mom about your brother?
Oh,
but it's just family, and it's just like da da da, or with your sister about your dad or your mom, and the conversation you should be having with your mom or dad, you're having with your sister, and that won't produce fruit.
Yeah.
And now it can if you do this. This is, to me, the line it crosses. If you're sitting there going, "Mom, really hurt my feelings by the way that yada yada happened at Thanksgiving, or Christmas, whatever." And what happens is, what we tend to do is we keep it at, here's what she did. Isn't that so wrong? Here's what she did this thing again, yada yada, right? All that. And we never take it to the and I felt rejected. I felt it's about you. That's okay. I think that's productive when it's like, here's how I process this. Here's what I felt, and I need to process that with someone. We always, I mean, not always, but we tend to always keep it about the other person, what they did, and we never. And it's like, that's to me is usually my cue when I'm talking to someone. If they're not willing, I just keep trying to. So tell me about you though.
Yeah.
I understand your mom hurt your feelings, right? Your brother did that. I got it. All right. So, but tell me about you. And you can usually tell a person at that point whether they want to go to that depth or not. And if they don't, it's like, then we really don't have much talking because it's just wasted energy. It really is wasted energy. And I know when I'm doing that too, when I'm just venting and I'm not trying to. Jenny's really good at that. If I'm frustrated and I'll talk to her about, she's, okay, I heard you. So what is that? So you feel what, dejected? I'm like, I don't want to talk about how I feel. I just want to tell you about that other person, how they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not fruitful.
Yeah. Or that you never go back to your mom and say,
have that conversation.
Mom, this is what that was like.
Totally.
And then it just I think sometimes it just then becomes a cycle and you just keep getting stuck in the same conversation that turns into the same gossip and there's not an end to it.
This is going to be crude, but it kind of makes sense. It made sense to me. I heard this years ago that gossip is like verbal pornography. And what they meant when I heard that, it was actually a pastor who said that. And what they meant when they said that is with porn, you get what would you say? Not the benefits. Without any of the investment in the relationship.
Yeah.
Gossip allows us the tasty morsels without having to do the work of a relationship. And in fact, that's actually one of the Proverbs. One of the Proverbs, Proverbs 18:8 says that the words of a gossip are like choice morsels. Oh, they taste good. They taste good when we're hearing them, and they taste good when we're saying them. And it's like they go down to the inmost parts, right? So it is very appetizing but I can eat cotton candy. So it's like cotton candy. I can eat, that tastes really good. And I can live on that diet. But I can't, well, I should say this. I can't live on that diet. What's a better way of saying it? I can eat all that. I can keep doing it because that tastes good. It's like dainty morsels.
It's not going to make you better.
But I can't, it won't produce anything in me. It won't make me strong. I mean, eventually I'll pass away from that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what gossip does. We feel like we're putting all our energy in it, but it's not even a relationship.
And I honestly think that when it comes to gossip, I think it's a litmus test of how healthy I am spiritually. Because I tend to be sensitive to my own gossiping when I'm close with God. Mm-hmm. But when I am having a strain with God, when there's some distance there, that's when gossip sounds good. It's almost like putting it into the food category. When I'm eating healthy and I'm working out, it's easy to step away from the tiny little mini chocolate bars. Mm-hmm. But when I am not eating healthy, when I'm not working out, when I'm not watching my diet, that's when I'm like, well, a little bit won't hurt, and a little bit more. And I think that's what gossip is. Here's
another angle. When we gossip about, you're asking, so I mean, we're kind of talking about right now, why is it wrong, or kind of why does the Bible talk about this? Another angle, Proverbs 26:20 says this: without wood, a fire goes out, and without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. Okay, so what happens so many times for me is I've got conflict with someone. Let's say I have a conflict with someone. That conflict could be resolved, but I keep feeding the fire. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing is every time I tell my story and try to get people on my side, every time I let me share my truth or whatever, vent, whatever, I'm just throwing wood on the fire. Yeah. So I'm not actually doing anything to do what Jesus said in Matthew 6, I think 5, 6, or 7. One of them is in the Sermon on the Mount, 5 or 6. And he says that whatever you do, like reconciliation, relational reconciliation is one of the utmost priorities of followers of Jesus. So much to the point where Jesus says, if you know that someone has something against you, leave the church gathering, if you're in the middle of worship, and go make it right with them. How can I work towards reconciliation while throwing wood on the fire of the conflict? And that's what gossip and slander, talking behind someone's back, we're just throwing wood on the fire.
Yeah.
And I'm more worked up afterwards. They're not even in the room.
Yeah.
But I'm actually more worked up now.
And it creates more hurt, more pain, because all of a sudden the words get back to that person, or the trust is broken down even of the person you're venting to. I'm a firm believer that if someone is talking to you about someone else behind their back,
Oh my gosh, I've told my kids that 1,000 times.
they're absolutely talking about
Yep.
you behind yours.
And I think the more you repeat it, or the more you tell that story to more people, or just over and over again, you're just digging the trench deeper of what you believe.
Yeah.
And so how much easier it is to fill in something that you've dug up when it stays shallow. But the more that you just continue to dig that trench by telling it over and over again, or it's the same thing over and over again, or the same boss over and over again, you're also hardwiring in your brain that
Totally.
is true.
That's the story. Yeah.
And that's way
And ironically, we never share that with anybody who will challenge us. We only share that with people who are
Right.
like, you're darn right. You ought to be mad. It's like, oh, that's convenient
yes.
Yeah.
that they all just happen to have my side.
Totally. And that's where
Makes
it's like
it
when you're
deeper.
and you're going to the wrong person for
Yeah.
perspective versus just hear me and agree with me.
Yeah.
But I think that in society, and I'll just breeze past this question with a statement to basically say that I think us as a society, much like all other sins, society has muted the sin to make it sound or seem almost acceptable. Gossip, for instance, seems to be almost like just a widely accepted okay thing. It's okay to gossip. As a matter of fact, we pride ourselves as a society on, we love gossip. So let me give you a question here. Is it okay to gossip? Is it gossip if you have no connection to the person? Is it okay to gossip about like celebrities and politicians, for instance? Because does that have the same effect? Because obviously, if I gossip about Taylor Swift, it probably ain't getting back to her. You know what I mean? So, or is that doing something to us as humans?
Yeah. I think you got to go back, Joanna. Why don't you go ahead? Because I think it all goes back to fruits of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question ought to be this: does talking in the way that I'm talking about this person or that person, if I know them or doesn't matter, does it lead to more joy, peace, patience, kindness, self-control, gentleness? So that would be the question. So does talking about Taylor Swift in that way, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but like, does it lead to more of that stuff or not? And maybe it's neutral. All right, fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it's neutral. I mean, like, but some things I guarantee you, it's like critical. Well, that's not peace. So what were you going to say?
I was just going to say the relevancy to me. Like, it's like all of that stuff is not relevant to me. I don't really care what most celebrities are doing. And politicians is weird, I think, because while I care what they're doing, it's more because if I'm voting for them or not. And so that just might be a data point that I'm using to make a decision around who I'm voting for, but not necessarily that I'm going to keep talking about the things that they're doing or doing that in gossip, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Those things don't feel relevant to me because they don't give me more peace. It doesn't give me more joy to read e-news or to know what's happening on the front page of the tabloid.
Totally.
And so like, I don't need to I don't feel compelled to interact with those things.
So it's almost like gossip has two sides of damage, is what I'm hearing you guys say. There's the damage to others, but there's the damage to self. So it can hurt other people and it can hurt yourself. So this is probably why God speaks so exhaustively about not gossiping. So whilst you gossiping about who Taylor Swift is dating is probably not damaging her, it is like eating nothing but cotton candy in your own soul. Is it making you a better person? Is it making you a greater Christ follower? Is it making you more compassionate or loving?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, then it's like, yeah, it may not be damaging them, but is it good for you?
Well, I mean, that is our ultimate filter as followers of Jesus. Is the most important, the great commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. It's the things that I'm saying and doing. I mean, that really is a filter for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way I'm talking about my boss, is the way I'm talking about my sister, is the way I'm talking, everything, right? Honoring and loving. That's the bottom line. Like, that really is the ultimate filter through everything.
Yeah. And interestingly, like, I don't know, you guys may agree or disagree with this, but I also think that that's like a form of distraction from the enemy. So like, think about all the rabbit holes you could also fall in, whether we deem it like good or bad, if you care about who Taylor Swift is dating or the rabbit hole you fall into on e-news. That's also just an incredible distraction that's not helping you do anything better or anything closer to what Jesus potentially has for you. And so I think sometimes it's also just disguised as entertainment. And it's like, I don't need to be distracted by something like that because it's not helping me grow closer to Jesus. And in fact, it's distracting me. And I've just spent 3 hours on E-News falling into a rabbit hole around celebrityism that, like, what does that have to do with anything?
So, Jason, what is the Philippians passage that talks about, if it's true, if it's
noble, praiseworthy, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the reference. That's why I was pointing Joanna, because I looked up another passage I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul says that whatever is to set your sights on whatever is true, noble, right, excellent, praiseworthy.
Yeah,
That's fix your thoughts on those things.
Philippians 4:8 says, "Now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing: fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise."
Mm-hmm.
And I think
it's like Taylor Swift worthy. I don't know. Maybe for you Swifties out there, yes, she's worthy of your praise. But I don't think falling into those rabbit holes gets me closer to fixing my thoughts on those things.
Yeah, but okay, but where does sports. Let's take it out of the realm of entertainment. We'll take sports, right? For me, I mean, I talk all the time about the Eagles. Or Alabama is really, and then second to that is probably Jalen Hurts because he went to Alabama and now it's with the Eagles. But my point is, like, I'm all the time talking about is that, so you also got to live life a little bit. And so I just want to make sure we're nuancing a little bit. Mm-hmm. Are you saying we can't talk about Taylor Swift or we can't talk about
I think the difference
Jalen
is,
Hurts?
like, if you're talking about will he do well this season on the Eagles, I think it's like, that seems to make sense. That's fodder about his career and stuff. If you're saying that if he's not a good husband,
okay, yeah, I heard
like,
heard that guy runs around on it. If I'm doing that, now that's actually slander.
Exactly.
Yes,
and again, even if it doesn't get back to him, it's hurting soul.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
a really good
that
nuance.
Kind of person.
Yeah,
and not to be dumb, but
I just don't want people feeling like we can't go out to dinner and like talk about real life stuff, which is just sometimes, what do you call that? Entertainment, I guess, is the best word. And sports is entertainment. So, what did you say? It's the diving into the territory of slander. It's the diving into the territory of, rumors, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If everything you said saw the light of day to everyone else, would it?
Which it will. Which is crazy. I was saying that to someone the other day. They're like, the Bible says that? Like, Jesus says that, or the Bible says, where is it? We got to look that one up too. That your words and deeds will be put out in front of everyone one day when Jesus judges the living and the dead. So now, thank God for those under the grace of Jesus. At that point, it's swallowed up.
Oh, Jesus, thank you,
But
Jesus.
it's funny because people are like, don't you want people who sometimes are like, I don't want a God who's judgmental and all that. It's like, okay, well, don't you kind of want a world in which people are responsible for decisions they make?
Yeah.
I don't think we want a world opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like, now that brings that sword has two edges to it.
Yes, it does.
But the alternative is not very good. So, hey, here's what I want to go back to the politics thing, because that was interesting too. Because I think we find ourselves in discussion about political leaders, and that's especially going to be true this coming year. But listen to this in Isaiah. And so we got to be able to talk about these things in a way that doesn't cross lines, I guess, into sin. Like talk in ways about very real sort of cultural issues and people, figureheads, right? Without it crossing over into gossip. So what does that mean and how do you do that and all that? But one of the things that strikes me is in Isaiah, I remember reading this right after the last election, and I was like, holy moly, man, that's pretty convicting. And Isaiah said this, the prophet Isaiah, he said, the Lord has given me a strong warning not to think like everyone else does. That's enough in itself right there. But listen to this. God said, don't call everything a conspiracy like they do, the world. And don't live in dread of what frightens them. And I think that's sometimes a good, like if you're talking about politics, but then you cross over in that line of the conspiracy theory stuff and all that, like you have no basis for this. I'm just reading. So this isn't Jason. I'm just reading what Isaiah said on this one. God gives a strong warning about that. Why? It actually has nothing to do with the conspiracy. It's because you're fearful. You're spreading fear, and fear is opposite of faith.
And
so if you're living in fear
yeah.
about, this person, that person, if they get in, if they don't get in, whatever, doesn't matter. This is a nonpartisan issue. Fear has a rampant place in both parties. So if you're spreading that, and you are going against the direction of godliness in this world. That's what Isaiah is saying, at least. Yeah. Actually, that's what God says directly to Isaiah. So
it's good.
Luke 12, 2 verses 2 and 3. Jesus says, wait for it. I got to put in the passcode of my phone. Luke 12, 2 and 3 is where Jesus says this. He says, he's talking to religious leaders, actually. And when a crowd of many thousands had gathered so that they were trampling one another, Jesus began to speak first to his disciples. Okay, so he's talking to his disciples, sorry. And he says this, be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Okay, so religious hypocrisy. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the ear of the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the roofs. So, I mean, that's a pretty good filter. Would I want this proclaimed from the roofs, what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So what is damaging about gossip? So it's easy to say, like, for instance, eating French fries is bad for you. It's like, okay, well, what's it going to do? But it's another thing.
Says you, first of all, on French fries. Anyway.
But like a steady diet of French fries, it's going to raise your blood pressure. And, all of a sudden you could possibly get coronary disease. You could die an early death. You could, gain lots of weight, all that kind of stuff. So it's one thing to say it's bad for you, but it's another thing to say these are the actual negative effects it could have. Mm-hmm. By the way, I love fries. Like, seriously.
Well, but actually, can I argue with you for a second?
About fries?
Well, about kind of what you said, if you eat it all the time.
Yes.
So French fries in moderation won't hurt you.
Okay. I know where you're going.
Gossip in moderation is still harmful.
Yes. It may not kill you as fast, but it's, I understand what you're saying.
So I think you have to be careful because I eat French fries a lot.
Is this about fries?
Well, no, I'm just saying,
No,
even in the cotton candy, like I eat cotton candy too.
Oh my God, Joanna! I'm just playing.
But I'm just saying, like, I think that might be a good distinction, maybe to just argue about for a second. Where it's like, I also just wouldn't want to say gossip in moderation is okay.
Yeah, that's definitely not what we're saying.
Yeah. And so
that's good.
It's not.
My mom always used to say, a little arsenic in your milk will still kill you. I was like 6. It's like, good gracious, Mom.
What kind of dairy farms did you have down there?
Well, she was trying to make the same point Joanna's making.
Yeah.
That like, hey, doing a little bit of something in moderation is still can kill you.
Yeah. That's.
I'm like, I don't want arsenic in my milk, Mom. I'm not going looking for it. She's like, I'm making a bigger point.
Did she sound just like that?
No.
So anyway, I think that like gossip in moderation still isn't a good thing.
Yeah, so it's going to make you sick. It's going to make you spiritually sick. So what are the symptoms of being spiritually sick from gossip? So I wrote a couple down. These are a couple things that I noticed, and I found them to be completely true. One is trust erosion. That's where, people... Okay, so let's talk about trust erosion. Let's actually talk about you, Jason. Okay, so this is actually something this is a great thing about you. You're one of those people that I would come to, sincerely come to with a problem or a burden, because you have a high level of trust in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is I've never seen you gossip about other people. Mm. But if you were a gossip, I don't come to you anymore, because I don't trust you. You've lost that trust erosion. Do you see how damaging that could be for a family, for a friend, for a community? you almost need to think about, like, will I remain trustworthy to other people in my behavior? So trust erosion happens like where people don't, and as a pastor, I have to make sure that, I'm always ready to be able to accept people's, burdens and their, what they're going through. But if I come across as a gossip or as a talker in that way, then people don't feel safe to come to me anymore.
Well, you also you're giving a ton of wisdom right there that people can sometimes people will kind of be like, how do I know who to trust? And again, let people tell you who they are and believe them when they tell you. So if you've got someone who has shared things with you out of like about someone else, like, you can't trust them. And that sounds harsh. It's like, then go ahead and just see if that doesn't happen to you. But it's kind of foolish. So anyways, I just don't want to skip over that. Like, that sometimes is a sign of who do you know how to trust? Well, have you ever heard them talk about someone else?
Yeah.
No? Well, then they probably are trustworthy. So.
Yeah. So one of the first damages of gossiping is trust erosion. So, but Joanna, let's talk about like reputation harm. So what does it do in circles of, like, especially, with female friends and stuff? Like, what is the harm it does for the reputation of a person when gossip is happening? Probably on both sides.
Yeah, it can just destroy it. Or like at the simplest, like, I mean, you can change someone's perception of someone else based on something that might not even be true. Yeah. I mean, even in that, like, what might seem like silly from 4th grade, it's like one girl had the power to turn 3 other friends against me that then none of them were my friend. And it's actually interesting. So before I came on staff at LCBC, I was a retail store manager. And I had worked for a brand that didn't align with my values that I had recognized once I was working for the brand. I didn't sign up to start at that place. And I remember when I had given just my notice and was like, hey, I don't think this is the right fit for me. I've actually accepted a position somewhere else. I gave my notice, and that DM proceeded to tell other store district manager. So my boss decided to tell other people why I left or why I was leaving, and it wasn't true.
Wow.
And so then, like, my reputation was on the line for why I was leaving, and it just wasn't even factual. And so luckily I had a trusted few that I had worked with, over that time period, that was just like, hey, this doesn't sound like you. Is that really why you're leaving? And it was just like, oh my goodness, no. Like, that actually is not, that's like not the case.
But okay, let's go with this, okay? If you had been the kind of person that was a gossip, someone that was loose with their words and said nasty things behind people's back, when your reputation did get damaged dishonestly, some people probably would have been like, I believe it.
Yeah.
Because your gossiping had diminished your character and your reputation.
Yep.
So you see how it works on both sides is like when we have honorable character.
Well, yeah, because that's what they said. That didn't sound like you.
Yes.
Right.
And when we gossip, it diminishes our character. And our character dips in people's eyes. So having high character when it comes to gossip also is a bit of a shield around other people gossiping about us in some way. It's almost like God was wise when he...
And interestingly enough, in that example, it was actually a reflection of his character.
Absolutely.
Which is what played into the part of my transition. You know what I mean? So like, again, back to that, like, sometimes that gossip comes from a self-preservation or like a motive for why people like jump into that. So anyway, I think, like, to what we were sharing, I think it's also a reflection of the person doing the gossip.
So true.
The other thing about words real quick, again, the Proverbs, I love all the Proverbs about words and the power because they're they have such cool imagery. But Proverbs 12:18 says, reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. This is the power of words again. And we all know this. You can't take it back.
Yeah.
I cannot unsay what I've said. And so that's the sword thing. I can say something about, your boss says that thing about, your former boss says that thing about you leaving. you can clarify but you can't undo it now.
Yeah.
The sword has gone in, and you can take the sword out, but the wound is there. Like, you can't. So again, that's why the scriptures are so clear on guard your tongue and just shut up sometimes.
Yeah.
Just shut up. Just be quiet.
Yeah.
And it's okay to, what was James say? To
Guard your tongue.
yes, and then he goes on to say about listening and all that. But anyway, so
Well, isn't it the sentiment of like just being slow to speak?
slow to speak. Thank you. Yeah.
And quick to listen.
Slow to speak.
Yeah.
Quick to listen.
Which I think is also a good like rule of thumb when you find yourself in a scenario where someone is gossiping to you,
That's
or
true.
when it turns from venting for then you to also not get roped into it.
Yeah.
And so I think that being slow to speak is also applicable in those moments when someone got you riled up right along with them, and being careful that they don't pull you into the place that the conversation is headed, which is easier said than done for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that the slow to speak is what helps your brain to say, wait a second, danger, don't engage.
But you can train people to stop coming to you with that crud.
Sure.
And the way you train them is you just don't engage.
Yes.
Because people are fishing. Actually, this is something we're dealing with right now. There's a person in my family who's in a particular environment where there's a lot of gossip, and they're trying to rope her into all of this, and so they're coming to her a ton, multiple people. It's a really toxic environment, and we were talking about it a little bit, and I was just like, well, what do you do? And she just said, she's like, I don't do anything. I don't respond. I basically just look at the wall. I mean,
Yeah.
in some ways. But you do that enough, and my point is this, you do that enough, and you'll train them like, we don't go to her.
Yeah.
Because you're just fishing. People are fishing. You ought to be really on guard when people are coming to you stuff. Like, just listen. Like, they're fishing. They want you on their side. And just be careful,
I'm curious. So I also think that there are probably some folks listening, and I don't know, this is just me going out on a limb with you guys in particular, even. What would we say to like a recovering gossip? And so like, I do think that there's an aspect that likely there are often times where people choose people, or you're already in a relationship where you've recognized that you're doing that, right? So what would we say to someone who's actually like a recovering gossip and recognizing, hey, I don't want to be that person, or I'm recognizing that I need to stop engaging in that kind of conversation with the folks that I'm around or the people I work with? Like, how do you stop doing it once you find yourself in a place where
that's all the people you know now.
Right.
You're saying like, that's your, and relationships do get built on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think gossip is one of those things where it's got to be a cold turkey. I think there's some things that it's you wean off of, but I think gossip is one of those that
Arsenic in the milk.
yeah, you stop taking the arsenic in the milk. I think, and I think what Jason's story was so powerful about Jason's story is, I don't think you start out as a defender of others.
Yeah.
You start out as a silent, I'm not going to contribute.
Yes.
So I'd say the first thing
that.
is you don't contribute. Eventually you become the defender and the warrior and the protector, and you go, you shouldn't say that, but I don't think everyone's there yet.
Not everybody's there, and that's personality. Some people may never be comfortable doing that. It's a kind of a justice, I think, gift and all that. But you don't have to join in. That's everyone. That's an all skate on that one. The other thing, Chad, I love what you just said, and I think you're totally right. The other thing you can do is you can turn it, and you can say, this person's going on and on about that person. So that must make you feel, now you're turning it to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, that's the other ways you can redirect this conversation to, okay, I heard you. So that hurt. What do you mean that hurt? And again, you'll quickly train them like, so you can still listen.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I'm not joining in on that. I'm going to make it about, if you want to talk about how that made you, what kind of experience that was for you, I'm game for that, because we're here in the same room, in the same space.
Yeah.
So I think those are two strategies. But I totally agree with you, Chad. Like it really is a cold turkey thing. But if you've got personal relationships that you're invested in. It's not like you can cut that off.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of sometimes in going, okay, how do I redirect it to being about a relationship conversation between me and this person?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I think to your point, sometimes it is like a camaraderie or a, hey, we're both feeling that same thing that is turning into that venting, that's turning into gossip. And then you're like, well, that's all we talked about. So
that's
how
all we
do-
talked about. That
Right.
wasn't a relationship.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like if you have a drinking buddy and your entire relationship is based on going out to the bars and drinking, and that's your whole friendship is based on that, and now you can't go drinking, okay, well then maybe that's not a friendship for you anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's not a relationship that was built on anything other than that. So you take out the drinking, is it still a friend? If you take out the gossip, is it still a friend?
No, that's good.
So, and I think we see that gossip hurts the other people. It hurts our character. It also hurts our relationship with God because like God flat out says, like when I was looking at passages for this episode, it's dozens and dozens and dozens of passages. I would argue God probably spends less time telling us not to kill people than he does to not gossip because it's just so pervasive. And so we see that it violates, biblical principles. It shows us lack of compassion. It also destroys churches and Christian communities. So God doesn't want us to gossip, but how do we stop? So like, what are some ways to stop gossiping? What are some practical things that we can do other than just doing the cold turkey and, spinning it? What do you recommend people do?
I think sometimes you have to be good at looking for it.
Okay.
And just what I mean by that is we even talked earlier that it can easily be disguised or it can start in one lane and kind of like shift lanes into another lane. Good. And so I think we just have to make sure we're good at looking for it or seeing it.
That's great. That's great. So like be aware. Like you gotta be aware of where gossip is and what it is. You gotta like you almost have to take the mask off and be like, I see you, gossip.
Yeah.
Like get really good at unmasking gossip wherever it is. It's like, I see you hiding there with that little comment about my sister. And I see you hiding there about that little comment about the boss. And I see you. You gossip for who you are, and I'm going to unmask it. So being aware is one way to stop gossiping.
The other thing I would just say is I think it's why are you about to talk about something? And like, so I think it's easy to also mask that in like, oh, I'm just curious. Like, hey, I'm just curious about that thing. And
you liar, you are not.
It's
You're
like,
gossiping.
do you really need to know that thing?
No.
Is it really relevant to you? Is that a piece of information that you have to know to be able to do your job or to be that friend or to go to that family function? No, a lot of times like you just want to know.
Yeah.
And then what's your motive for just wanting to know?
Oh, man,
I like that.
That's good.
I was going to say, if you're feeling like, can you gossip about someone if you're building them up?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Are we supposed to answer that? The answer is, I think the answer is no.
I was kind of rhetorical, but also kind of not. Like, I did think about it for a second. Like, I don't think because you're just leading to the fruits of the Spirit. Because kindness. So my point is, if you find yourself in a conversation again where you're getting drug in, you're aware, it hits you, like you said, whatever. Turn it positive. Like say the thing about the person that's positive. That might be a turn.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you can think of a behavioral trigger, to like when I start go down that road, think about the most positive thing I can say about that person, and then say it.
Because so first you have to be aware. You have to see it. I mean, you've got to open your eyes. You got to live with eyes wide open, which is so much about the Christian story, about our Christian living, is you don't get to blindly go through life. We don't. We have to live with our eyes open, and we have to see things, and then we have to be aware of it and then be positive. We have to turn things positive because we're ambassadors of Christ, and so our job is to, where Satan is trying to destroy, we're redeeming.
Yeah.
And even taking something as gossip and being like, someone's complaining about their mom, and then you say, I bet that hurt. You're now opening an opportunity to have a conversation about something good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even introduce them to Jesus in some way, which is really probably shooting for the the backboard on that one. But
And it's interesting. I feel like I'm giving you guys so many personal stories. That's why I told you before we started recording, you guys can't judge me after we record this episode.
Cotton
But
candy, fries, and gossip with Joanna.
It's funny because even the other day, just at home, Junia's 3. Her personality is really strong. We are reading a book right now that's called like Parenting Your Spirited Child. And anyway, our son came into the kitchen and was like, oh my gosh, why is Junia so bossy?
mm-hmm.
And we could have said like, yeah, dude, you're right. Isn't she like, she's so bossy all the time now? What is with that? But anyway, thank goodness I'm reading this book instead. And it said basically take that word and reframe it.
Okay.
And so
that's that positive thing.
Yeah. So then like I paused. Yeah. I paused and I was like, hey, Finn, like if anything, Junia is now figuring out how to be more direct. She's using we're asking her to use her words. She's using her words. She's being direct. But just take that out in a different kind of relationship. It is easy to be like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like they're totally bossy. It's like a different muscle, or even like, I think earlier we talked about like spiritual maturity. Like it's a sign of spiritual maturity even to be able to say, hey, no, pause, time out. God didn't make her bossy. Like God has given her a gift of directness or whatever, where you're just reframing your experience versus jumping in and being like, oh my gosh, you're right. Isn't she the worst? Like that's not helpful.
Yeah. It's teaching Finn that, we don't talk about each other when we're not in the room.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Or even when we are in the room, because let's be real, they're brother and sister. So they're also fine with that too.
I think the third thing is accountability. So we said be aware, be positive, and I think be accountable. I think if you're making a genuine decision, you tell people. You tell people out there, like, hold me accountable. Like, especially if you're redefining a friendship and a relationship, even if it's a spouse, and be like, because I know that gossip goes on between Steph and I, and we talk about other people in ways that are just, we shouldn't, and we have to get better at that. And so like being accountable and saying like, something, I want to get better at this, so call me out. And just, if you're taking it seriously, if we take God's word seriously, and God gives lots of warning signs saying, don't do this, if we're taking him seriously, then we should be willing to go as far as to say, call me out and warn me if I'm starting to head into the gossip territory. So I think the other thing that you can do is just be accountable to others. So,
and just for free, know when you need to say you're sorry.
Okay, go on.
And actually recently I experienced something where Jason actually and I were in a conversation. And
me, Jason?
Yeah, you, Jason. Okay. And one of the things you had said, it's like, what does that have to do with you? Like, what about that equation can you go do something about versus just being frustrated by it and talking about that thing, in our conversation. And so I recognized that actually in that moment, I needed to go apologize to the actual person I probably should have been talking to the whole time. And so I think it's also important to just know, when do you need to say sorry? And what's funny is I went to that person and was like, hey, you don't even know this. But again, one of our values is relationships, keeping short accounts, working well with one another. I just need you to know from even a heart posture, I need to apologize to you. And you probably don't even know why I need to apologize. And so that was a very humbling and difficult conversation. Sure. But I think also just knowing when you need to say sorry when you've gotten it wrong.
But that person, Joanna, I 1000% promise you, that person's image of you went up. Like, at least your character. It might have hurt. It might have been like, ow, I wish she hadn't have done that. But at the same token, she now knows you're of a certain kind of caliber that is significantly more trustworthy. And along those lines is like, you said you had to go and apologize. So I would say, is that a required thing, or is that just going to make things worse? So like, if you're turning a new leaf and saying like, I'm not going to be the gossiping mom, I'm not going to be the gossiping friend, I'm not going to be the gossiping so-and-so, is it okay to stop cold turkey and be like, from this moment on? Or is there something that about going back and apologizing and having those moments of forgiveness?
There is something, but I'm not sure that there's a law. I mean, I say law, but use that loosely. I'm not sure there's a prescription around that. I would say, Joanna, you were you felt the Spirit of God convicting you, and
Totally.
you should do what you feel the Spirit of God convicting you to do. So
Yep.
if you feel convicted about it, you should do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think but I'm not sure that will be the case every time. I think if you slander someone behind their back, that's a pretty egregious sin. And I would say, yeah, you probably should repent of that.
Yeah.
And you took something from them. You took their reputation. You took something. So, but that's not, sometimes gossip and slander are cousins, but they're not, like there's a difference sometimes between you're passing on or whatever. It crosses a line sometimes. And now you're attacking character. You're making whatever. You're talking, you're criticizing like their character
right.
behind their back. That's a different thing, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And you may need to. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But that's where the Holy Spirit comes in. And I think everyone needs to hear that is we don't have the strength to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry. I don't care what kind of a spiritual juggernaut you are. You don't have the strength to be able to go back to someone and say, I said something behind your back that I shouldn't have. Like, that's hard. But I think the Holy Spirit does give us the strength to be able to go and have that conversation when we need to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like God tells us to go do it, and then he says, well, I'll be waiting back here when you get done. Come tell me how it went. Like, God goes with us like a child that's committed some wrong, and he holds our hand while we go have that conversation. So
Yeah.
Your God voice sounds a lot like Jason's mom.
Oh, God.
Southern lady voice.
Well, and I think a lot too will say, talk to God, do what he says.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're doing those
Good way to
two
say it.
things, you're like likely on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So Jason, like there used to be a time at LCBC. I remember David, who used to be our senior pastor. He used to say in classes, he would say,
No, yeah, we've said this a lot.
he'd say,
Yeah.
if you're going to talk about someone, if you're going to gossip and stuff, he goes, you can stop coming here right now. And he basically
Yeah.
would say, there's the door, go. And he would always say, and I remember this vividly, he'd say, go ruin someone else's church.
Yeah.
So Jason, last words are yours, man.
No,
Like,
we did. We spent years saying that at that point we called it newcomers class. Now we call it first steps. And it's essentially for anybody who wants to know more about the church. And that's kind of where we set out our church values and all that. And we're very strong on this one. And because the propensity or what people most naturally do is if I've got a problem with Joanna, I don't go to Joanna, I go to Chad and I tell him about the problem that I have with Joanna. That is, through and through what most people will do. That will destroy a church. That will wreck a family. It'll wreck relationships, and it will destroy a church. Paul said in Galatians that you're biting at and devouring each other. That's what it does. It's like you're devouring each other. Before long, you've got a bunch of, you got a really messed up group of people now. So we guard that pretty close, and we would say, don't play that game here. Go ruin someone else's church. And then I would always add on to that, and don't tell us which church you're going to, because we will call them and tell them that you're coming to ruin their church, because it will ruin and it's kind of making the point that like this matters. So at a corporate level, it matters deeply. It will destroy. I mean, it's ruined friendships. It's ruined. Proverbs 16:28 says a perverse person stirs up conflict. Now that's pretty strong. And it says, and a gossip separates close friends. That's what gossip does. It separates. So God is not in the separating business. He's in the reconciling business. So that's one at a church corporate level. At a very personal level, Jesus said that what comes out of your mouth is representative of what's in your heart. So at the end of the day, how we speak is a reflection of the condition of our heart. So we want our hearts to be fully surrendered to God, to be bearing the fruits of the Spirit of love, joy, peace, kindness, gentleness, self-control. And we want our words then to reflect that. So it's just bringing that into alignment and constantly asking, God, do the words of my mouth reflect they do reflect the condition of my heart. What is this saying about my heart right now? Because we want our hearts more fully surrendered to his work so the fruits of the Spirit are come to bear.
Wow. So on that note, as always, now that we're lives changed by Christ, we want to live that change out. And one of those ways is addressing even the gossip in our life. So start looking at your own life. Be aware of where the gossip is. Turn it into something positive, and ultimately, be accountable for the words that you speak, because in the end, as a life changer by Christ, other people are watching. So make sure you live that change out.